I think I need a break. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to boot up my laptop and relax. Maybe watch some YouTube videos and see where we go from there.
2,000 years later.
For crying out loud, Microsoft, jeez, what is going on? Why aren't you still booted up after all this time? Oh, finally. Is this you? In this video, I will go over some of the worst aspects of Windows 10 and what you can do about it. This is Media Channels, a multimedia corp production, bringing you information about the latest media trends, helpful tutorials, and commentary on the digital world around you. Welcome everyone, my name is Stuart Rathje, hosting episode number 10 of the Media Channels podcast on this 27th of September 2018. In this episode, I will go over some of the most irritating aspects of Windows 10. Yes, that device that I have behind me right here, that Windows 10 device, has been driving people crazy for the last 3 years, and me just as long. So let's be honest, we all know that Windows 10 is one of Microsoft's worst and most annoying operating systems ever, at least from a user standpoint. And because of my experience with Windows 10 and the users that I support on occasion, I have created a list of the 10 things that drive me the craziest about Windows 10 and some of the possible solutions to that problem. So number one in my list is obviously Windows Update. Windows Update's always wanted you to do this and that and da-da-da. Everyone's always saying, why is Windows Update doing this? Why is Windows doing that? Okay, so Windows Update, if you don't know, if you aren't on Windows 10, it forces you to do updates regardless of what you're doing. It forces you to do anniversary updates at least once a year where there's major changes in the system. And presently, there is no permanent method to completely disable those anniversary build updates. So, short of disconnecting from the internet, I suppose, and leaving your computer completely disconnected. The thing with anniversary updates is that they frequently tend to break drivers, and drivers are those little bits of software that help run your computer, such as printers and whatnot. It also frequently breaks usability. It breaks printers. I just had someone I was helping last week. Their printer stopped working because of an update to Windows, so I had to roll it back. And all these updates, they tend to waste your time. Really, they really waste your time, especially you have to go back and roll back to an earlier version of Windows. So your only option with Windows 10 is to pause the updates, and pausing updates is not an ideal solution, but it does sort of give you a little bit of leeway. When Windows 10 first came out, it wanted you to do updates regardless. You didn't have any options whatsoever. And because of enough people complaining, they gave in a little bit, not as much as we'd like, but they did give in a little bit. So you can actually pause updates now through the advanced options window. There's an update setting in the control panel for this. So you can actually pause updates for up to 35 days for regular updates and up to 1 year for anniversary updates. So if you have an old piece of software, a printer, maybe a USB headset or something, and it's a little bit older, there's a good chance that it might break in the latest update. So you can actually change the setting, set it to 365. So hopefully that'll give Microsoft and the manufacturer more time to get an updated driver for you so that it doesn't break on the update. To do this, you'd have to go and change the branch. There's a setting called branch readiness, and you can set it to the semi-annual channel. There's two channels. One is gives you updates more often. One gives you updates less often. So the semi-annual channel is what you want to be on to get the 365-day delay. The other thing with Windows updates is that it always wants to update at the worst times, regardless of what you've done with the active hours. Now, I don't know why I can't ever seem to get active hours to work the way I want them to work. And for this reason, I feel that even if I set my on hours to, let's say, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., okay, and I put the computer to sleep, I'll come back days and days later. I always leave my computer, I tend to leave my computers on for days and weeks on end, and I generally don't log out. My home laptop, I will generally just close everything, and I'll come back, and it still hasn't updated. I've set the active hours. It still hasn't updated. And then I'll be in the middle of watching a movie or something, and boom, says, oh, we have to restart now, or we have to restart now with the next, do you want to delay it for an hour or something, you know? So, I mean, why can't you get this right, Microsoft? What is the big deal with active hours? I mean, in the past, Microsoft, you were able to take a computer out of sleep mode to do updates, but for some reason, you can't do that anymore. So, I'm not sure what the deal is with that. Maybe somebody who has more experience with Windows 10 can give me a hack or something that can fix that particular issue. Yeah, and that's the thing. Why can't you just do the updates when you need to do them? So I realize sometimes people have a lot of programs open, so it's not going to do updates, which is probably a good thing. But when you don't have programs open, it should be updating when it says it's updating. And updates, the other thing about Windows updates is Windows updates by default will not download everything directly from Microsoft. And this is a major problem. It'll actually, there's a setting in Windows which is called, well, it's not called peer-to-peer, but I call it peer-to-peer, okay? And it allows you to grab parts of updates that people have already updated their system with down to your computer. And the same way is if you've done an update on your computer, a Windows updating computer, it'll actually upload it to somebody else, okay? So this means that other Windows users are providing you a bulk of the update and not Microsoft, right? I mean, it originally came from Microsoft, but then someone else's computer got updated, and that in turn updates another computer, and that in turn updates another computer. So this means that it's eating up your bandwidth. So if you're on a slow connection, you know, it's eating up your bandwidth and it's slowing down your computer as well. And it's doing this all in the background. Nobody, unless you know anything about computers, you probably wouldn't know that this setting even existed. Thankfully, however, you can turn it off by going to Advanced Options under Settings, the Settings Control Panel for Windows 10, and under Delivery Options, there's a Windows Update Control Panel. You go in there and you can change it. So there's a setting that's called Allow Downloads from Other PCs. If you turn that to off, it should take care of that. But again, Microsoft, why would this be on by default? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because people are not going to, most people don't know a ton about computers to go in there and turn that off. So if you're maybe on a cell phone data plan or something like that, and it's sitting there doing that, that's just horrible. I mean, it's sucking up your bandwidth, and you got to pay for that bandwidth as well. Number 2 on my list of Windows 10 annoyances and things that drive me up the wall is the invasion of privacy. Okay, so this was been in the news since the beginning of Windows 10 and probably Windows 8 as well. So by default, when Windows 10 first came out, it was spying on every aspect of your computing life and sending the information back to Microsoft. It was doing this through the new Windows Start button and the search, or the voice recognition and search feature called Cortana. It's doing this through your usage habits. So if you're opening programs, it was doing this through many other aspects of the operating system. So the average user wouldn't know about this, and people were starting to wonder why their computer was slow and why information was being sent back to Microsoft and whatnot. So they slowly started introducing options into Windows 10 to turn some of these privacy features off that are basically considered spyware. It's basically, you know, turn your computer into a surveillance device. You know, this is not good. This is not the way to behave, Microsoft. You got to get your act together. I don't know if they're selling nobody really knows what they're doing with the information at this point. Probably selling it to advertisers, most likely. Probably using it for their own stats so they can sell you more things. Probably, who knows what other nefarious purposes they might have. And then you have the ads and the what's new and suggests. I'm sure it's being used for that as well. So you can turn some of the privacy features, you're turning the features off you can turn some of the features off that would be collecting data about you. And if you're worried about what Microsoft is collecting about you, you can either go into the control panel to privacy settings and just change as much as you can to the off setting, or the better method is to download a tool such as Spybot Anti-Beacon. There's a program called DWS. There's also another program called W10 Privacy. So all these tools will turn off as much of these spyware type of features built into Windows 10 as they can. It may not get everything, but it will take care of a lot of it. Just be wary that your mileage may vary with this, and sometimes if you change too many of the settings in these programs, it can actually break your computer in other areas as well. So use at your own risk. Okay. And number 3 on my list is Cortana. Cortana. Oh, it's one of the worst search features ever, in my opinion. I mean, I loved the Windows 7 way it did search. You click on your start button, and there's a little white box there that says search programs and files, right? Simple. You just type in, if I'm looking for Word, I just type Word. If I'm looking for a document, let's say widgets.jpg, I would type widgets.jpg, and it would usually find it fairly quickly. And if it wasn't finding it, you could also do a more advanced search, and that would bring up a traditional Windows search function. Okay, not with Windows 10. Things have changed. Now it wants to search the internet first. Oh, let's go out into the cloud and search for what you're looking for. Do you have a question? What is the weather today? Oh, let's go on the internet and find out the weather. Okay, but if you have a weather app on your desktop, maybe you're like, just type weather. Oh, it's going to go out on the internet and search for weather first before it search for the app in Windows. I mean, this behavior is just ridiculous and clunky. Half the time, a lot of users complain that it doesn't do proper voice recognition, and it doesn't understand what they're saying, even after they try to train the thing. Seriously, Cortana, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Cortana on desktop, maybe it's good on the phone. I don't have a Windows phone device, which is already, not something people are buying anymore. But the voice recognition system is just much better on Android, Siri, Samsung devices. I mean, they're not perfect, but they're a heck of a lot better than what Windows has right now. And I think that on the desktop, just dump Cortana altogether. Just bring back the old Windows Ajax type search feature. There's no point to it. It just, for the most people, it's just annoying, or they don't use it at all. Now, you can turn off Cortana you can't turn it off altogether, but you can disable some of its features that it may be using to send back to Microsoft. So Cortana, collecting information about what you're typing and talking about, is sending this information back to Microsoft as well. And it's sucking up your data plans, your internet resources, and who knows what else it's collecting at the same time. So to minimize this annoyance with the Cortana, you can go into the settings control panel again, and you can turn off cloud search, and it's under Cortana permissions. You can turn off cloud search, and you can turn off history. And this will help basically with the privacy issues. It'll speed up the Cortana quite a bit. I mean, I don't use Cortana anymore because it's just irritating me. And I actually have a third-party program. It's a third-party start button that has a Cortana. Well, it's basically the old Windows 7 start button. It's called Windows 7 Classic Shell. I use that for everything because it's almost identical to the Windows 7 start button the way it used to be. So that's something you may want to check out as well. And that brings me to number 4, which is the start button itself. And the start button debacle started with Windows 8, and it just continued on to Windows 10. They tried to make some improvements over it because people were complaining like crazy about the Metro apps, and you click on start and it takes you to this weird screen and you don't know what's going on, and on and on and on. So they made some concessions, not as many as we'd like. One of the things that really annoy me about the new start button is the black and white icons. So at first, they really resemble software from the early 80s when we had black and white screens or green and black screens where you had 2 colors. I mean, the start button, I don't know if you can see it behind me, but there's a bunch of little icons over on the left side there, okay? And those icons, they're tiny, okay? First of all, they're tiny. They're hard to see, and they don't really represent anything that somebody would understand. You have a little rectangle, and it's just this tiny little rectangle with this little fold over it. Now, if you really look closely, you may get that it is, hey, this is documents. But to the average person, do you really know that's documents? So you gotta go take your mouse over there, highlight over it, and oh, what's this do? Click on it. Oh, okay, so that's my documents. But then you gotta do it over and over again. So it's gonna might take you a while to understand what all these little icons and things do. They totally changed everything, the way it works, and what people are used to. Now they have to relearn everything over and over again. We're on a desktop, we're on laptops, we're not on phones. We can't click. I mean, you might have a touchscreen laptop, but for most people, I'm not gonna be sitting there tapping the screen like crazy to get work done. I got a keyboard. I like to type on a keyboard. I have a mouse. That's what I've been using since forever, since I was 16 years old. And I don't think Microsoft really gets it. They've been trying to change their interface around to make people happy, but they just keep making it worse and worse and worse. So again, what are these things supposed to do? Until you actually play around with it, you don't know. And they change it from every update. They change things around. So that's just, when it comes to user interfaces, it's just bad. All around bad. I don't know who they put in charge of this stuff, but it's just bad all around. Get your you-know-what together, Microsoft. Anyways, next, annoying thing about the start menu is the context menu. So the context menus are what you get when you right click on something, right? So back on Windows 7, you had useful context menus. If I click on the start button and let's say I go to computer and I right click on it, I get things like open, manage, rename, properties, and whatnot. No, but not with Windows 10. Windows 10 does not do this, okay? Windows 10 removes all the important options that people are actually using, such as remove from this list. So on the start menu, let's say I wanted to remove something from the list. Oh, wait. No, it's not there anymore. Oh, okay. Well, that's too bad. Now I have to go somewhere else to do that. How do I do that? Oh, I got to figure it out now. Okay. How about properties? What if I want to know the properties of a file? Maybe it's a spreadsheet. Maybe it's a photo. Maybe I want to see how big it is. I don't know. Let's click on properties. Oh, wait. Properties is not there. Jeez. These little handy things, that people that are used to. Now they're gone. How about open with? Oh, okay. I have a document. I want to JPEG. I want to open with Photoshop. Maybe I want to open it with Paint. Maybe I want to open it with some other program. Oh, you know what? That's gone too. Now I can't open with anymore. Jeez. What else is gone? Copy and paste. Oh, geez. Now I can't copy and paste anything. So if I see something on the start menu, I just can't right click, copy, paste anymore. Maybe I can use a shortcut. I don't know. Rename is gone too. Yeah, I want to rename something. Oh, I can't do that anymore. So, and I get this distinct feeling that Microsoft really hates the desktop, laptops, other than their Surface Pro. I mean, it's their device, so they got a pen that they can use, I guess. But, everybody else is out of luck. Desktop users and laptop users, anyone with a mouse, the heck with the mouse users. Everyone's using a phone anyways. And this experiment of theirs, Windows Phone is a failing experiment too. So now you're left with Windows 10. That's not even good on a phone anymore. So what are you going to do? And then the other thing with the start menu is you have all these annoying apps. You have all these notifications. You have all these tiles in there. All this junk in there that's just cluttering up everything, driving me crazy. Click on the start menu. You want to see what programs you got. No, you see all these tiles now. Tiles of this, tiles of that, weather, blah, blah, blah. If I want to look at the weather, I'll look at the weather. I don't need to click on the start button to find what the weather is, right? This goes back to the days of AOL when we had 16 color screens. Everything was red, green, or blue, basically, white, black, these big tiles, AOL days. Oh, just click on that. It's easy, But people, this isn't AOL. This isn't AOL from the 1995. People are trying to do work. They're trying to get things done, type up Word documents or whatever it is they're trying to do. They're trying to do it productively. And you're making it so hard for us. Number 5 on the list is DVD playback in Blu-ray. I guess Blu-ray playback, which was never really in Windows anyways. But DVD playback, they remove support for DVD playback unless you upgraded from, let's say, Windows 7 or Windows 8 that already had DVD playback. It would upgrade you to the Pro version, and then you would still retain your DVD playback. But for new machines or machines that were installed from OEM versions, which are basically just the bare bones version of Windows, home version, DVD playback is being completely removed. So now you have to rely on third-party software for DVD playback. You can't just boot up the system, throw in a DVD, and play a DVD anymore. That's gone. That's been totally gone. So you got to download other software for that. Some manufacturers throw that in. I remember back when I was working at IBM in the early 90s, we'd always bundle DVD software into Windows 98 and Windows XP because it didn't have DVD playback. And then when Windows XP finally got DVD playback, everyone was like, yes, now we don't have to use this crappy software that was being bundled with the machines anymore, right? Now they went back to that so they could save a few pennies in licensing costs to the trying to think of the name here, but anyways, the organizations that handle DVD licensing and some of the big movie companies, right? So I'd say Windows, Microsoft, just spend the little bit it costs to license that, bake it into the software again. People still use DVDs, people are using Blu-rays, right? I mean, yeah, it's not as popular as it used to be, but a lot of people in the office and stuff still are using DVDs, right? So I would say put it back. They probably won't, but that's my suggestion anyways. Number 6 on my list is Microsoft Edge and its annoying icons, right? Again, they literally mean nothing, and forcing you to play guessing games on what these icons do and what these features do. I mean, a lot of things are buried. I mean, you can't find half the things. You have to go through all this stuff. It's not like they give you a manual to figure out how everything works, right? You go to help and you have to type in, what you're looking for. Well, what if you don't know what you're looking for to begin with, right? This kind of thing, it drives people up the wall. And especially if you're changing the software from year to year and moving things around, people get very irritated very quickly and will just not use it. I'm going to say Microsoft is not the only person or the only company that is doing this, but Microsoft, being in a unique position, doesn't have to follow the trend. They can do whatever the heck they want. They're a big company. They can set the trends. And instead of following along with this ultra minimalist, elitist design disaster that hides everything important under tiny non-descriptive icons, I think it just is ridiculous. Microsoft, you don't have to do this. Go back to the old ways of design and interface. Stop following the trend and stick with what works. But I guess Microsoft probably doesn't even really care because it's not like they had had ever had a decent web browser. Internet Explorer 4 was no good. I mean, back then we had Netscape, right? That was the go-to browser. We had Internet Explorer 5. Again, it was pretty much not any better than 4. 6, again, it had major issues with rendering websites. 7 was a little better. 8 was not too bad, but there were still some issues with it. 9 was sort of okay. But they went from 9 to 10 to 11 rather quickly, and it was just not good, because a lot of the times websites would not look the same as it did in other browsers such as Chrome and Firefox and whatnot. So I guess when you've had 11 versions or so of Internet Explorer and they've all basically sucked, then I guess you can just throw that one into the why try category. It's there, but why try when you have better browsers out there? Next on list number 7 is, do you remember how annoying Microsoft OneDrive was just a year and a half ago? I certainly remember it because it was always in my face, and my business partner at the time was being driven up the wall by Microsoft OneDrive, and I was trying to remove the OneDrive, and it wouldn't let me. It wouldn't let me remove it. Wouldn't let me get rid of it. OneDrive a year and a half ago was like that crazy ex-girlfriend who would not go away no matter how many times you kick her to the curb. She always came back for more and is constantly annoying you with pop-ups and other questions about backing up your data to the cloud and configuring itself. Oh, you need to be reconfigured. We want to put your files on the cloud. There weren't really any ways to disable it at the time, but if you were technically inclined, you could go and do some hacking in the registry, changing permissions on files and whatnot to sort of prevent it from loading and basically erroring out. At the time, that was the only way you could get rid of it. And I guess enough people complained about OneDrive because as of the creators update of 2017, they finally allowed you to uninstall it permanently through the apps and features setting within the Windows 10 control panel. Now, they did bring this as well. This actually tends to get installed as well with Microsoft Office 365 as well. So you may have to, once you install that, you may have to install it again. I don't know how it is today because it hasn't been driving me nuts lately, but it did at one time. And if you remember that, you probably were in the same boat as I would. So in the meantime, they probably collected all kinds of information about the kind of files you were doing, the kind of documents, and probably selling off to third-party advertisers. Who knows what they were doing with the information that was being uploaded to the cloud. I can't stand the cloud when it comes to files. I don't want all my files on the cloud. There's certain documents that just don't belong in the cloud, considering how often stuff gets hacked today on various websites. And I'm sure Microsoft has probably been hacked too. They're probably just very quiet about it or keeping it a secret. I would be horrified to know that, let's say, financial information had gotten hacked or something like that. And like the recent hack with NCIX, now this is a little bit off topic, but NCIX went bankrupt back here. It was a computer tech company that I tended to buy a lot of equipment from, and based in Vancouver. They went bankrupt last year, and about a week and a half ago, a news story broke that the original servers from about 10 years ago, from my understanding, is that the servers were sold off to third parties with the data intact. So this included financial information. This included SIN numbers, people's contact information. So anything you've ordered online or went to their store, any information they collected you was sold to third parties. So the RCMP actually did seize the servers, and they're currently investigating it. But this kind of stuff happens, and I don't think Microsoft is immune to it. So I don't want my data on the cloud, especially sensitive information. Anything sensitive, stays on my computer. It stays in the secure area. I don't want it up on the cloud. If I'm just uploading some random pictures, home pictures, okay, fine, that's fine. It can stay on the cloud, but other than that, I don't want it on the cloud. So well played, Microsoft. You have a lot of people's information now because of OneDrive. I hope you don't abuse that information. Number 8 is basically with Windows 10. Have you ever noticed sometimes where your computer just starts acting really strange, or it slows down for no reason? Maybe its startup is just ridiculous. Your computer, basically, it starts to act like a bad robot. It's going behind your back to plot assassination attempts against you while you're sleeping. And it does all this nasty stuff in the background without your knowledge, without your consent, and it drains system resources and it slows everything down. And if you're trying to get work done, it's very, very annoying. I still use Windows 7 as my main desktop. I mean, they've introduced some updates there that came from Windows 10, but for the most part, it's still a lot nicer to use than Windows 10. And I have seen so many Windows machines bogged down to a crawl and taking sometimes 30 to 40 minutes to start up. And before it settles down its background processes, it's been doing all these things in the background. And meanwhile, all you're trying to do is some simple work, and it's still loading. You start up Word or something, and it takes 5 minutes to start up Word because it's could be doing some virus checks in the background, which you never told it to do. It could be doing superfetch, which is like a search function for Windows. It's trying to index everything on your computer when you first start up. One of the machines I was working on recently has an issue with Windows notifications. For some reason, the Windows notification is preventing the start button and everything from loading. It just sits there and loads and loads and loads. It's just some memory leak. Okay, so I had to disable it. Windows push notifications are causing an issue, and all these things they build up, and it just slows down the entire machine. It's just too much stuff going on in the background. And these are not third-party apps that are loading. This is Windows. This is actual Windows processes or programs that are loading in the background that people don't know what's going on, and it's causing all these issues. The average person, when this starts happening, they'll probably just think it's a virus. Well, no, in the majority of these cases, it's not a virus. I mean, I'm not saying that people aren't getting viruses. I'm just saying a lot of these cases I'm seeing are because Windows is misbehaving. It's doing all this stuff in the background. It's not smart enough to know what to do. So it just runs everything at once, and everything just goes crazy, right? So people are becoming victims to this, and their computers are becoming unusable. And then they have to take it to someone like me or a computer repair shop and say, oh, I think I got a virus. My Windows is doing this or that or blah, blah, blah. Or maybe they're getting blue screens now. I don't know. It's just ridiculous. I mean, Windows 7, I can't say it's just so much better in that regard as well. Windows 7, people don't complain nearly as much about Windows 7 as they do about Windows 8 and Windows 10. Windows 10 is just wish you would go away. Go away, bad robot. Just take your victim somewhere else. Go bother somebody else. And number 9 on my list of Windows 10 things that drive me absolutely bonkers. I mean, number 9, I say, is not going to drive me bonkers, but I'm going to talk about one of the issues with the Windows Store. And Windows Store is a bit of a curse and a blessing, sort of. So the thing with Windows Store is that I find that the interface is a lot less intuitive than it should be, okay? And what I mean by this is to install an app, you normally go to the Windows Store, okay, and then you go to apps and maybe search for something or see what's there, and then you install it. Okay, that's fine. That's all perfect. That's good. But then if you want to uninstall the app, you have to go start app settings, and then find the app, okay? And then, so why isn't there an uninstall button in the same place as the rest of the app information? I mean, I can find out information about the app from the Windows Store. I can do other things from the Windows Store, but why can't I uninstall the app from the Windows Store? Are they trying to prevent people from uninstalling? I don't get it. I mean, why do I have to go through these hoops just to uninstall an app? It doesn't make any sense to me. The other thing with Windows Store apps is I find that their quality is not up to par a lot of the time. There's a lot of bad apps on the Windows Store that are just absolutely garbage and have no purpose being there whatsoever. At least with the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, there's some sort of quality assurance. I think Microsoft is blindly allowing apps through. I don't know what they're doing over there, but it just seems like the selection and the choice of apps are just craptacular at best. I mean, they've created this weird ecosphere with Windows 10 where you have Windows apps and then you have regular programs, right? And they're running in these different sort of ecospheres, and they're sort of mingling in little ways but not all ways. And then so you end up with this weird sort of convoluted thing where, oh, well, Calculator is a Windows app, but Word is not an app, and then this is an app and this is not an app. And then, you know, when you go to make changes or do something with the app, you're like, oh, do I have to go to Windows apps? Do I have to go here? So at least in the newer versions of Windows 10, you can pin everything in the same place, so that makes it a little less frustrating. But I mean, it didn't used to be that way. I mean, it was just a nightmare before. So they fixed some of that kind of stuff. But this whole ecosphere, I don't know what to think of it. I mean, it leaves me confused sometimes. And, you know, is it a program? Is it an app? What's it trying to do? Where's it going? Is it in program files? What is the purpose of some of this stuff that's in there, you know? So this whole thing of trying to do too much again is just, they just need to rethink the whole thing. You know, if you're going to have a phone with apps, have a phone with apps. If you're going to have a desktop, it should be focused on desktop purposes, not app purposes, right? You know, on Windows 7, I have a calculator. I can open the calculator and On Windows 10, there's calculator, but it's a Windows app. So I don't know. Take it for what it's worth. I mean, this is my opinion, obviously, but I'm not going to say everything's bad about Windows 10, but I mean, these are just the things that really drive me crazy. And number 10, the final thing in my list of Windows 10 annoyances is the general overall UI inconsistencies that exist. And again, this basically goes back to what I was just saying about having sort of two ecospheres of programs and apps. So you get apps that are very simplistic in way and they look and how they behave and not many options to interact with. And then you got the old style, like Windows 10 7 style, where you can change options and a little more intuitive, you know. So this general overall inconsistency with Windows 10 is just, they just need to separate the phone part from the Windows part, the tablet part from the desktop part, you know. Just make one OS for each device and just tweak it to that device. Don't try to do everything at once. It just doesn't work. And as we've seen since Windows 8, it doesn't work. It just frustrates people to no ends. And another one of the UI inconsistencies too is, you know, ever since the April 2000 update, the anniversary update of Windows 10, they have introduced a feature called conscious scroll bars. Oh, like it sounds like something that a hipster would say. Conscious scroll bars. I mean, what the heck is a conscious scroll bar, right? Conscious scroll bars is their attempt at making more screen space, I guess, for Windows 10. But what it actually does is it automatically hides the scroll bar on whatever it is that you're on. They're supposed to be calling this an improvement, but I think it's just consciously irritating me. It consciously irritates me. And the scroll bar is an important visual indicator. It's been around since Windows 3. I mean, seriously, it's part of Windows. You can't just hide it somewhere. People, it's a visual indicator to people so that they can understand what is happening on the system or in the program that they're in. The scroll bar, for one, it tells you where you are in the document. So let's say you got Word. It tells you where you are in the document, right? I want to know if I'm at the bottom, the top, whatever. It tells you how long the document is, right? And if I need to move it around, I can either use my mouse, click on the scroll bar and move it up and down. I can use the scroll mouse and whatnot. And then it gives me that visual indicator that I need. It's that feedback that I need, right? So Windows, yeah, it auto hides the taskbar. In the latest versions of Microsoft Office, the scroll bar is not even there anymore until you move the mouse right over top of it, which, oh, I didn't even know was there. You could start scrolling and it shows up again. With Windows 10, it just shows this tiny little gray line that you can't even see. I mean, what the heck is this supposed to be? It's just a gray line. How am I supposed to know that this is supposed to do something, right? So it's taken away this ability to know what's going on. It's taking away control of the system. You know, instead of working the way that you want to work, it says, I want you to work this way, right? It's not good. It's bad design. So, I mean, with all these, Microsoft, I mean, they've run on a roll for a while now since Windows 8 with just messing up the interface. I don't know, with this whole tiles and minimalist design. It's just an utter disaster. I know I sound like a broken record, but this is just how it is, you know? And with the scroll bar, there actually is a way you can get the scroll bar back, and you probably don't know about it. But if you go into the control panel settings again and then go to ease of access, it depends whether you go directly through the control panel or through the Windows 10 settings. But if you go to the control panel, go to ease of access, you can actually turn there's an option there to turn the scroll bars back on from auto hiding. I've never been a fan of auto hiding everything. I like to know what's going on with my system. Some people maybe don't need that turned on, but for most people it is a visual indicator. It's a visual indicator to tell you what's going on. So go ahead, if you're one of those people that like to see the scroll bar, go ahead, go to ease of access and turn it back on. Now I haven't found a way to do it to get it turned back on in Word yet. Luckily I have a scroll wheel, so for Word it's not the end of the world, but for a lot of other apps, having that scroll bar is very important to me. And then obviously the mismatch of the old UI elements versus the new look, as I mentioned already. It's just makes me think of that the OS is somehow bipolar and it needs to take its medications. Some days you don't know what it's going to do, and some days it's really nice and chipper. So the overall design of the UI needs a lot of work for Windows 10, in my opinion. And perhaps, maybe I'm just an old man who likes yelling at trees because they are too green. But I don't think I'm the only one irritated by all this craziness, because in the Google search, if you type, now Google search has autocomplete. So if you start typing something, it has an Ajax type search where it'll auto complete what it thinks you might be trying to search for. And those lists that it thinks you might be trying to search for are based on the popularity of the search. So if I type, let's say for instance, if I type Windows 10 is into Google, it comes up right away as one of the popular searches. Okay, so that should tell you something right away. And then when it shows the list of what it is, you'll be very interested, I think, to see what's in that list. So people are generally frustrated with Windows 10 and probably Microsoft in general. So go check that out. You'll see you're not the only one that's been irritated by this. Okay, go check it out. And to close off this podcast, I'm going to leave you with a list of some of the worst Microsoft inventions to plague mankind, or maybe people kind. I should be saying people kind. You know how Trudy is. He's very particular about his people kind. But anyways, number one on that list, and I invite you to search for this. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what the item on the list is, and then I'm going to tell you what my response is to that. So, and if you search for that, you'll come up with some interesting stories. So, the first one on the list is Microsoft Mobile. So you may not know what that is. And the response to Microsoft Mobile is BlackBerry. Okay? Microsoft Mobile versus BlackBerry. Okay? Number two on my list is Windows Vista and Windows ME. And my response is, what is with this blue screen all the time? Okay? So search for Windows Vista, Windows ME, and then the response is, what is with this blue screen all the time? Okay? Number 3, Internet Explorer 5 and 6. Okay? My response is, how come this web page doesn't look right? Number 4, and unless you've been using computers for as long as I have and been using older versions of Microsoft Office, you won't understand what this one is. But this one is Clippy. Clippy, Clippy, Clippy. Oh, everyone remember, maybe you don't remember Clippy, but Clippy, Clippy, that annoying thing. And my response to Clippy is, it looks like you need some help. Would you like a hand with that? I think you need some help. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Number 5 on my list is Microsoft's Bob. Now this one's a little less well known because probably a lot of people didn't even use it, but search for Microsoft Bob. And my response to this is, to start a program, all you have to do is click on it. Okay? And number 6 on my list is just something you would never think Microsoft has made. But look, search for it, okay? Actimates. Actimates. And my response to Actimates is the Barney song, okay? So look up Actimates and the Barney song, and you might get a good laugh of what some of the videos out there are. So anyways, again, you may not be aware of all these Microsoft products, and that's mostly because they were complete and utter failures due to bad design or bad marketing. So go check them out if you want to know more about them. Thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. If there is something in this list that you think should be, or you want to ask a question of me, please feel free to do so in the comments. To view or listen to more of these podcasts, like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel using the watermark in the bottom right corner, or follow me on Twitter. You can also listen to these episodes on popular podcasting platforms such as iTunes and Stitcher. And for a full list of podcasting platforms, please see the description or visit our website at multimedia.ca/media-channels. And I appreciate your support and thank you for listening. And to all my people kind, please resist the urge to throw your computer out the window. And I've been tempted many a times, but please resist, because how would you then watch these videos? Have a good afternoon, everyone.